Hello, Abigail here with a little rundown of the astrology and some tarot for this lunar eclipse in Virgo. It is a full moon, of course, because it is a lunar eclipse. It's extra special. There's so much happening in this moment, so much, so much just involvement in this energy. There, all of the planets feel like they're involved in some way or another. Um, that we are in the Venus retrograde. This is eclipse season. It's just a lot. The ruler, Mercury, is stationing retrograde as we kind of head into this. We have Saturn opposing this moon. We have Neptune opposing this moon. Of course, it is conjunct the South Node. It is trine Uranus. You know, we're like, well, Mars isn't really involved. Yeah, but Mars is still in its shadow period. Like, there's no it feels like everything is interconnected, which is very Virgo of it. Virgo is this hyper connected earth energy. It's like, you know, mushrooms with all of their little um interconnections under the surface and that sparking of all of that information. It's like how trees communicate. This moon is just a spider web of energy and points of importance and seemingly unimportant things that are going to be important and have become important. It's just really magical to me. Maybe it's because I'm a Virgo rising and a Virgo moon, but there's just so much opportunity in this Virgo full moon slash eclipse. And I've had this really weird feeling about eclipse season. Some eclipse seasons I'm like, well, about to suck. But in this one, I really feel like and I've talked to other astrologers and they agree, there's like a special gift in here. There's like little hidden gems in the soil of this beautiful eclipse. And no, eclipse portals aren't easy. What I tend to find is between eclipses, that little middle 2 weeks tends to be where everything happens. Yeah, some really major stuff will happen on the eclipse, but that kind of peak energy is right in the center of those 2 weeks. Um, and I think some really incredible stuff is going to happen. Also, we have Saturn opposed, conjunct the sun, opposed the moon. For a lot of people, and for anyone who, really studies these cycles, you never really know what a Saturn in Pisces is up to until later. Like, obviously, looking back, you're like, oh, look at all that innovation, look at all that change, look at how incredible that was. But at the time, the stuff that Saturn and Pisces was doing, people were like, oh, this might not last. Oh, this thing, it's cool, but doesn't really have legs, which makes sense because it's in Pisces, little fish. Um, and then years later, the thing that we didn't know if it had legs or not is literally like one of the most pivotal, discoveries or, you know, events or moments in history. That's very much part of the energy of this eclipse. And then we have that trine with Uranus. Uranus will eventually be in Gemini this year and then retrograde back into Taurus and then be back in Gemini, in Gemini 2026. So we have this kind of final, Taurus energy. This also really feels like we're bringing back that energy of all of the Uranus moments that we had back in, what would that have been? Spring of last year, when we had, especially for those my age, who had Uranus in the later degrees of Capricorn. So I'm in my early 30s. So people like late 20s up into almost the mid 30s. A lot of us had a lot of interaction. If you have Uranus in any trine, square, sextile, I mean, we can count everything because I find inconjuncts are also really important. So there is also, while we're kind of being grounded by Saturn and kind of called to deal with things, Uranus is also like, we're going to do this. It's going to happen. And you're like, what's going to happen? And Uranus is like, it's a surprise, which I think is really fun. And then on top of that, we have Neptune at 29 degrees, preparing to go into Aries. Um, And it adds this extra, really magical, divine quality to this moment. And it's important to note that Neptune, for quite some time, has been in opposition to Virgo. And so we're getting this kind of like divine culmination of something, this kind of a sweet farewell gift from Neptune as it prepares to move into Aries. And yes, 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 it'll be coming back, later this year, briefly into Pisces again. But it is starting to say its goodbyes to that Piscean energy. And we're caught up in this really difficult but divine moment in this Virgo eclipse. And I don't know, there's just a really, times are hard. I've been going through it, but there's just this feeling of anticipation, like something's about to be good. And not that I think everything's going to change and that suddenly we're not going to struggle with the consequences of other people's choices. We're not going to struggle with the current political climate in the US, the violence and the cruelty and the hatred, things like that. But it feels like something good is coming, something sweet and fresh, something rich from the soil is heading our way. And yeah, it's not easy. And it feels wild right now, but it's a really special gift. And I don't know what it is. It's very unique to everyone. Um, and then, we have the ruler of this eclipse stationing retrograde. And so there is kind of this breathlessness as we hit this eclipse of like that moment on a roller coaster right before you go over the edge and your breath catches and then it drops. Um, and while it doesn't seem like a gift, it feels as though we're about to start heading down. And that momentum is going to help us get up the next rise. Um, Also important to note, our next eclipse is at 9 degrees of Aries, where the Mercury for this eclipse is. So while Mercury and Virgo, they're in conjunct, they might feel not at all associated. There's a deep interconnection between these eclipses, and they share this eclipse portal. Not to mention, the spring equinox is right in the center of all of this. So yeah, there's something's happening. Spring is coming. Change is coming. It's already here. We just don't know it yet. Um, Also, the things that we have done and the labor that we have put into stuff, it's really going to start to take effect. A lot of the work we've been doing that feels like, especially during the Mars retrograde, where we feel like we haven't accomplished anything, a lot of us are going to start to see that. All the work we've done over the winter, we're like, gosh, wouldn't it be nice to see results? I think we're going to start to see some of that start to pick up as we move through these eclipses, even while Venus is retrograde, even while Mercury is retrograde. Obviously, we're going to see more of an effect and more clearly once we're on the other side of this retrograde, so mid to late April. But things are changing, and we're going to be Mars once we get into May is going to go into Leo. It feels like a long time, but this eclipse is that quickening, is that moment of things starting to lock in, and maybe you can't see what's locking in, but you can feel that things are starting to click across the board. All that effort that you've been doing, all of the details you've been focusing on are going to start to click in. And is it going to be in the way you expected? Probably not. Is it going to be easy, simple? No. But because of Virgo and its rulership of like the stomach and digestive system, it's going to be easier to digest and to process and to understand, which I think is really, really important for all of us to kind of recognize that and to really feel the truth in the work that we have done. And while Jupiter is not technically by degree associated, it is also kind of squaring this little moment. Um, so that push and pull we've been getting from Jupiter and Gemini, that kind of weird, is this a cruel joke or is this actually progress? Um, we are going to have to contend with what we think is good. with what we believe is abundance, with what we think is fulfilling and nurturing. And a lot of us, especially with Venus retrograde, are going to have to come to terms with what we thought was going to be a good thing that wasn't, or the thing we've been investing in that we thought was what we wanted and it wasn't. But I think while that recognition is hard, I think in this eclipse, it is also going to be a moment of release and relief, of finally being able to let go of something that wasn't meant for us anyways. Maybe it's a job or a career that we were like, wow, this is everything I've ever wanted. And then we get into it and the rubber meets the road and we have the things that we needed and we're like, yeah, that was nothing that I wanted. I was told that this was good and it just wasn't as good as they said. Or if you're in the kind of opposite position of not having a job, it's a really hard position to be in. I've been there before. But kind of recognizing what the downtime has meant for you. And maybe it's a turning point where you see the downtime, while very stressful, as less of a panic zone and more of a zone to really sink in and ask yourself what you truly want. And once you get that job, what do you want to do with it? And to remind you that it's not just getting the job, it's getting the job that works for you. Because that's why the job market is hard, because they want you in survival mode. They want you accepting any contract they give you. There is a reason it is so effed up. And it's not because the economy is bad. Well, it is, but the economy is bad intentionally. We live in one of the richest countries in the world and the economy is bad. Where'd all the money go? So it's intentional. And start to ask yourself, what world do you really want to live in and how are you going to get there? And if enough of us ask ourselves that question, we will join together and it'll be a community and we'll be able to make real change. And no, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be fun, but we can make it fun. And in the parts that aren't easy, we can come together and help each other. And that's really what the essence of this moon is. It is about connectivity. It is about everyone being connected and everyone putting in their little bit, which makes it a lot of bit, makes it a big thing. And yeah, there can be a tendency in this eclipse to be hyper focused and hypercritical and all the things we know that Virgo can be. But if you're willing to let go and release into this energy, I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think you're going to experience a lot of the really good things that this moment can bring us. Oh, there's a blackbird flying outside. I can't tell what type of bird it is, though. Anyways, I love it when I get to see nature from my city view. Oh, he's coming back. What type of bird are we? Are we just a pigeon who's really dark? No, might be a crow. There are some crows that live around here, very sadly not close enough to my building to make a deep personal relationship, which is one of the dreams of my life. Anyways, let's get into the tarot energy reading for this moment. Let me get my cards in order. So we start off with the Page of Cups, and I really do love this because this little guy has been popping up everywhere. It's about approaching things with honesty. It also, I know it isn't a water sign, but it very much reminds me of Venus and Aries. There is a sense of like deep emotional honesty when we hit Aries, for better or for worse. But that naivete, that desire for goodness, that wanting something we have never experienced before, but also feeling like we deserve it even though we don't know what it is. Very Page of Cups. You know, I also love the little fish in the cup. It's very silly, goofy. You know, it also to me is like listening to messages from ancestors, the universe, our guides, really, you know, listening to the stuff that seems unimportant, listening to things that seem as though they're not really an answer. And also, not everything needs to have an answer for you to find a solution. Um, so enter this Virgo eclipse not as a full grown adult. It reminds me of the SpongeBob episode when he, if you haven't seen SpongeBob, I'm sorry. Very important to watch it. When he wants to be an adult. And so he refuses his grandma's cookies and is like, oh, foolish Patrick. which I still think Patrick is a dick in that episode, but I don't really like Patrick. um, let's not be SpongeBob in that episode. Let's go get grandma's cookies and kick our feet and be playful, even in the heaviness of this energy. In order to navigate this, we need to approach it fresh and believing in something. And for better or for worse, trusting that we have done what we need to do and then allowing ourselves to just be, to just exist, to just enjoy and to participate. And then we have the Queen of Wands, which I love this. This is about really trusting in our passions and our desires. It's lovely because Aries is in a fire sign. It's also about taking action behind the scenes, doing things that people don't know about, and maybe not sharing as much as we normally do. This is the time to kind of keep your cards close to your chest. A lot of people are kind of cycling and filtering through now with the Venus retrograde and the Mercury retrograde that maybe don't have our best interests at heart. Keeping your cards close to your chest, making plans, moving behind the scenes, getting things done, but not because you don't believe that it's not going to happen. There goes that bird again. I really want to be friends with a crow, guys. It's okay. I'll be okay. Also, the ADHD being like, birds. And really trusting and believing in yourself. And I love how each one of these cards hasn't had an animal so far. This card's familiar is the black cat. Makes me wonder if our spirit guides aren't at play here. Maybe it's time to create a connection with your spirit guide. Maybe this eclipse cycle is the time to start a new phase of a spiritual journey. You don't have to push it, it will come, but you just need to be receptive to it. So take action, do the things you need to do for yourself. You don't need to tell anyone, you don't need to give anyone a heads up. You need to be doing stuff to make sure you're safe, to make sure you're happy. And that is not at the expense of the community. As everyone's like, whenever we talk about taking care of ourselves, it's like individuality, F everyone else. No, you taking care of yourself is a service to the community. When you are healthy, when you are well, you are able to participate as a community member rather than when you are unhealthy and unwell and you're unable to take care of other people. And I'm disabled, so I'm not saying that you need to be healthy to care for others. I'm just saying healthy in the sense of like whatever your diverse needs are, you're meeting them. And your capacity is also in the context of the capacity that you have. So like my 100% as a disabled person isn't going to look like the 100% of someone who is disabled, but it is still 100% or 20%. So trust, take action, do what you can, but also the Queen of Wands knows what their capacity is. They're very aware of what they can and cannot do, and instead of seeing it as a limitation, they see it as a guideline for the path that they take. So don't look down on yourself if you can't do something. Just be like, well, that's not my job. Then we have the Seven of Cups, which I love. We have no idea what's going on. There are going to be so many options offered to us in this eclipse portal, but you don't have to pick them all at once. It's kind of time to observe and to see. It's not in this deck, but it's another one on my deck. It's also, I saw the Seven of Cups represented as an elephant balancing a bunch of cups on its back while going up a really steep hill. It's also about balancing all the craziness that's happening. You don't need to do it all at once. Also, some of the things that look really shiny at the beginning of this eclipse portal are not going to be very shiny at the end of it. So don't just grab the first cup that you see. There's something really special and unique meant for you, but let time take its course, especially with Saturn opposing this moon. We're going to have to come to terms with some of our limitations. And that includes not taking on more than we can handle. So be selective about what you do. You don't need to take on everything. Also, not every cup has something good in it. So maybe you don't need all of them. Then we have an Ace of Cups. There is something fresh and exciting here. We are at the beginning of the Virgo Pisces nodal story. It's going to move really quickly. We're going to be in and out of this before we know it. But we are in the beginning phases. So enjoy, allow yourself to feel new and fresh. It is kind of tricky because Virgo is so responsible and Pisces is so old that sometimes it can feel like I've been alive for forever. What do you mean new and fresh? But, you know, as a lot of us notice if we paid attention to older family members or just older people in general, I'm not talking about the rude, mean ones, but there is a I don't give an F energy about a lot of old people. That is the new beginning of this Pisces Virgo moment. I don't care. Your opinion, that's great. Glad you have it. How does it affect me? No. So care less. This is your moment. This is your time to have fun, to play, to enjoy, to embody a page of cups. Be silly, goofy. Everything is serious, so why not have a little fun? And then last but not least, oh, I have to add this too. I usually do the bottom of the deck, but the Five of Cups was there. We have this Queen of Swords. Trust yourself, trust your intuition, trust that Mercury retrograde is giving you the information you need. Is a little garbled. Is it stuff that maybe we would have liked to have known sooner? Absolutely. But it is your job to trust and to believe and to move forward with the trust that you have and with the knowledge that you have. Also important to note, in a Mercury retrograde, you're not expected to know or be more than you are in this moment. Just be what you are now. And last but not least, I know I'm pretty positive about all this because I am a perpetually hopeful person, but there is a sense of loss. There is going to be a redirect. Like I said, a lot of stuff that we thought was going to work, we're going to kind of realize it was never meant to work. So there is a sense of loss. And I do kind of, sometimes I get kind of images of cards that I kind of view as just as good as a physical card. I get the Eight of Cups. We're walking away from some stuff. But also a reminder that while these three cups are tipped over and we do need to grieve them, we do need to see how things have kind of unraveled in these back to back retrogrades. There are two cups over here that we have yet to take into account. And it's okay to mourn and grieve those three cups, but just know that it's not everything. You haven't lost it all. And you're going to find so much more, especially once we head into that Aries eclipse. All right, my loves, that is my message for you. I also recorded the Mercury retrograde video before this, and I feel like it was very chaotic. So enjoy. Sorry if it was too much. But this is me, exhausted from a lot of really stressful things, drained as an autistic person, dealing with this energy. And that's okay. And it's okay for you to feel that way too, regardless of whether you're autistic like me or not, or have chronic pain or anything else that I have. Anyways, my loves, I will see you in a different space and time. Please like and subscribe. Oh, as I mentioned in the Mercury retrograde, doesn't have to be me, but this kind of 2-week portal is an excellent time for any kind of reading. It's a great time for past life rectification, Reiki, astrology, tarot. So if you have your go-to person or you want to book with me, now is a great time. All right, my loves. I do have to check if my books are open because I tend to close them between full moons and new moons. So they will be closed for the eclipse. However, if you really feel like you need a reading, reach out. Um, Nothing's off limits in eclipse season. Anyways, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in a different space and time.